During the 1970s, Latino farmers across the United States were not getting enough pay and worked in bad conditions. Because of his experience as a farm worker, Cesar knew the hardships of farm workers and changed minority working rights forever. Cesar Chavez formed an association that was aimed to help Latino farmers get better pay and working conditions. Cesar took a stand in history by advocating for minority and Latino farm workers' rights. Cesar made national headlines when he created a strike to boycott grapes. By doing so, he exposed poor working conditions for farmers. Cesar Chavez dedicated his life to improving the treatment and pay and working conditions for farm workers. Cesar Chavez was born near Yuma, Arizona on March 31, 1927. He was the second child of Lavado and Juana Estrada Chavez. When he was young, he worked in the fields with his family of 8 who worked as migrant farm workers. His parents owned a store and had a 100-acre farm that his grandfather, Cesar Chavez, had established during the Great Depression. The Chavez family lost their land because they could not pay their taxes during the Great Depression. During the Great Depression, half of the industrial workers in the United States lost their jobs. Because of this, they joined many migrant laborers and moved to California. Chavez quit school while in the 7th grade to work full-time in the fields. Because of this, he struggled to read and write. In 1944, he joined the U.S. Navy, where he served for 2 years. Because Chavez was not allowed to work in high-skilled jobs, he returned to work as a farm worker in California after he left the Navy. In 1948, he married Helen Fabula from Delano, California. The Branchero program was named after the Spanish term branchero, meaning manual labor, or one who works with just his or her arms. Was a series of laws and diplomatic agreements that started on August 4, 1942, when the United States of America signed the Mexican Farm Labor Agreement with Mexico. This allowed Mexican migrants to come to America, particularly to work on farms. Farming as a migrant in the late 19th century was hard because of the exposure of pesticides and bad living conditions. It also was bad for incoming migrant workers because they all had to live in basically tiny shacks and there was not much room, so sickness can and will spread quickly. Migrant farm workers at that time worked long hours in the fields for very little money. Many of the farm workers were not U.S. citizens. Sometimes their employers would not even pay them at all. And there was nothing they could do and nowhere to turn. Some workers began to join newly formed labor unions. During this time, labor unions among minorities were growing. Labor unions and organizations that contained workers in a similar trade or profession. Their job is to unite and to protect the rights and interests of workers. However, labor unions do not always help. In an interview with the Farm Workers Press, Chavez remembered, "When I was 19, I joined the National Agricultural Union, but in it didn't have any more success than any of the other farm workers' unions." Father McDonald was the only priest of the Catholic Church because there was no church there. Father McDonald introduced Cesar to the social justice teaching that really impacted Cesar to influence the religion while he protested. Fred Ross was the founder of the Community Service Organization. Cesar met Ross in San Jose, California. Cesar trained in the CSO, which led him to teach about organizing protests, and led him to co-found the National Farm Workers Labor Union. Cesar Chavez co-founded the Farm Workers Association, whose goal was to increase farm workers' rights. One of the most impactful protests that Chavez created was the Delano grape strike. Its goal was to bring awareness to the poor working conditions for minority workers. It was originally started by Filipino workers on September 8, 1965, when workers walked off the job at Table Grapes and demanded that they receive at least minimum wage. Once Chavez joined the protest, the amount of farmers protesting grew to over 2,000. During this protest, Cesar Chavez took a stand in history by advocating for minority and Latino farm workers' rights. Cesar Chavez made national headlines when he created the strike for boycott grapes. By doing so, he exposed poor working conditions and wages for farmers. The Delano strike ended with a great success for the UFW, and ended with the first grower contract aimed to benefit farm workers. The protest improved the wages and housing for minority farm workers. Cesar Chavez was working to risk his own life to show that violence should not be used. To show this, Chavez fasted many times. Once he only lived off water for 25 days. He repeated a similar fast in 1972, which lasted for 24 days, and again in 1988, this time for 96 days. Chavez also advocated for the creation of the California Agricultural Labor Unions Act in 1975. This guaranteed that justice would be guaranteed for farm workers and allowed farm workers to unionize. Cesar Chavez helped reorganize his union to Farm Workers Association into the United Farm Workers of America. The United Farm Workers of America, also known as just United Farm Workers, is a labor union for farmers. It was founded by Cesar Chavez and co-founded by Dolores Huerta, of the Agriculture Workers Organizing Committee. In 1984, Chavez helped initiate the international boycott of table grapes. Its goal was to address the inhumane working conditions and wages for farmers. As wages had dropped 25% within the last 8 years, according to the Department of Agriculture, the average table grape farmer worker only earned $5,000 a year. The strike encouraged people to stop buying table grapes and for workers to walk off their fields. In the end, it helped improve conditions for workers and created strict codes and regulations. Cesar Chavez died peacefully in his sleep on April 23, 1993, at the age of 66, near Yuma, Arizona. Cesar dedicated his life to improving the treatment, pay, and working conditions for Latino farm workers. He did this because he knew from his childhood about the hardships that farm workers faced. As a labor leader, Chavez encouraged members to be nonviolent in order to bring attention to the difficult lives of farm workers. He led marches, called for boycotts, and went on several hunger strikes. This also brought national awareness to the dangers of pesticides and workers' health. Because of his work, he became friends with colleagues and many friends and which supporters, which included Jesse Jackson and Robert Kennedy. Cesar Chavez was significant to history because he improved the pay of farmers and improved working conditions and the treatment for Latino farm workers. He did this by helping and co-found the United Farmers of America, which had 10,278 members of 2013. Cesar Chavez and his family were awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom on August 8, 1994 from Bill Clinton. Cesar Chavez impacted workers' rights in the past and continues to impact rights today.